Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Bonsoir à notre réunion du 21 décembre 2022. C'est une réunion spéciale. I have with me today our city clerk, Florine Agabinhu. I hope I got that right. I'm going to keep on practicing. We have all of our city councilors, Andy Schuster, Mitch Kajowski, Peter Burku, Stephen Early, Cindy Benisri, Mike Cohen, and our city manager, Jonathan Schechter. And are there any questions? I know we didn't receive any online in writing, but people, and there's no one here to ask a question, but perhaps somebody online wants to ask one. If not, we'll move to the next item.
S'il y a quelqu'un avec une question en ligne, tu peux peser sur lever la main. You can click raise hand if you have a question on Zoom.
Okay, so on va aller au deuxième. Stephen Early, le conseiller Early va commencer avec numéro 2.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So I'll continue with the adoption of the bylaw concerning the taxes for the fiscal year 2023. Just give me 1 second. Be it resolved that bylaw 2612 entitled bylaw 2612 concerning taxes of the city of Côte Saint-Luc for the fiscal year 2023 be is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Early, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion?
So just to mention briefly, this is to adopt the tax rates that were discussed at the special meeting on Monday. So the tax rates represent a roughly 5.95% increase for the average residential property, which is a single family home, condo, and townhouse. Will not repeat the presentation made on Monday, other than to say our hope was to keep the tax rate as low as possible. We did this in spite of an increased payments agglomeration representing approximately 14%. We managed to bring down our local spending by about 3.5%. But obviously we were not able to bring the taxes to that rate, given the significant increase from the agglomeration. So again, this bylaw is to adopt the tax rates, and the residents should be receiving their tax bill starting end of January. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously. We move to item number 3. Councillor Early.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2574-2, amending bylaw 2574, entitled bylaw 2574, instituting a financial assistance program for the purchase and installation of a home electric charging station in order to amend the source of financing to the 2023 operating budget be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Early, seconded by Councillor Burku. Any discussion?
So just to mention briefly, this is to update our home charger rebate. So this is for residents in Côte Saint-Luc who have an electric or EV charging. This is charger. This is something many cities are doing throughout the province of Quebec, throughout the country and North America. It's a rebate of $250. What we've done this year is change the source of financing to the 2023 operating budget. And I should say partly in line with some of the reductions in operating costs in order to offset the large increase from the agglomeration. We've lowered the total fund from $15,000 to $7,500, but the goal again is still to continue to encourage residents to purchase electric vehicles and hope to minimize the effect of climate change. And that's one of our goals that continues to be on our list of items to do. Thank you, Mr.
Certainly. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? No one's opposed. It's carried unanimously. The next items, item number 4 to item number 12, are notices of motion and tabling, which are done by one member of council. So we'll have Councillor Early do items number 4 to 12, and you can do them one at a time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll start with giving notice of motion for bylaw 2603 to be entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $1,386,000 for the replacement of various lead service lines throughout the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc. Furthermore, I'm mentioning this object and scope and tabling the draft bylaw. I'll just share some of the quick highlights. This year, we did 877 pneumatic excavations. We did 33 lead service replacements through that project, plus another 62 plus another 26. So in all, just over 100. We're done. For the upcoming year for 2023, the plan is to do 243 pneumatic excavations. So this is where we check the pipe to see if it is, if it contains lead or is made of lead or copper, and at least 47 lead service lines. So the goal is to continue working on this, and by the end of 2023 to come up with a long-term plan to do a better analysis so we can remove all the lead pipes over the next few years. I'll move on to the next one. So I hereby give notice of motion. Sorry, I'm just flipping. That bylaw 2604 entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $546,000, including professional fees for sidewalk repairs at various locations belonging to the city of Côte Saint-Luc, will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling the draft bylaw. Now, so this bylaw is related to sidewalk repairs. So what we've managed to do over the last 5 years is approximately 6,800 cubic meters, square meters, I should say, making sure I get the correct units, square meters of sidewalk over the last 5 years. So the goal is to continue on the same rate to do, about 1,400 square meters again of sidewalk next year. We hope, of course, the rate per square meter will continue to stay low. We know with inflation, it might not happen, but the goal is to continue with that process and keep making sure that our residents are safe. I'll move on to the next one, to item 6. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2605 to be entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $1,252,000, including professional fees for the purchase and installation of LED streetlights, conduits, and electrical wires for streetlights at various locations in the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc, will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. So in the last few years, we've replaced 782 streetlights with LEDs. The focus has been on what we call the Cobra heads. And you may have noticed recently, for those who live in the vicinity of Mackle, between, I would say, Cavendish and the arena, we just replaced quite a few more over the last few weeks. So I would say at this point, I believe every Cobra head has been replaced with an LED. The next phase is what we call the cubes. So those are the cubes that are held from below. You'll see a single or a double sometimes on a pole, an electric pole. And the goal is to continue with the next phase, which is to slowly replace all those with LEDs. That'll take a few years, but part of this is going to be done in 2023. I'll move on to the next item, item number 7. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2606 to be entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $215,000 for the purchase and planting of various trees for the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling the draft bylaw 2606. In terms of trees, I'm happy to say that this year, 2022 was finally the year where we turned a tree deficit to a tree surplus. Going back to 2013, 2014, 2015, we had to cut down over 1,000 trees because of the emerald ash borer. And I would say since then, I would say starting late 2015, early 2016, we've been trying to play some catch up. And finally this year, we ended up in a surplus. So we are right now sitting at a surplus of 310 trees. When you factor in, we've planted just over 2,400 trees and plus 220 trees given out to residents and minus the roughly 2,300 trees that had to be felled. For 2023, the goal is to plant 400 more trees. Keeping in mind, we may have to fell about 120 trees as the emerald ash borer is still, I hate to say it's still with us in Côte Saint-Luc and of course, most of the area. But all that to say, we're continuing to increase the surplus. I will move on to item 8. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2607 to be entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $300,000, including professional fees for the purchase and installation of a fence for the baseball field at Kerwin Park, situated at 5732 Wentworth Avenue in the city of Côte Saint-Luc, will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling the draft bylaw. So this loan is to replace the fence of the one of the baseball fields at Kerwin Park. I hate to say we had done this not so long ago, but there were some issues with the foundation of the pole, and we found that it had shifted slightly, which is not something that should be happening. There is a legal aspect that our legal department is working on, but in the meantime, this was deemed an urgent priority for the city, and the work will be done in 2023. And the ultimate goal is to make sure, of course, residents are safe, that there's no poles that are falling, God forbid, and to make sure, of course, the poles are up and fences that are attached to them to make sure that baseballs or softballs don't end up in the homes of some of the neighboring residents. I will move on to item 9. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2608 to be entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $1,970,000, including professional fees for various renovations at the Aquatic and Community Center, ACC, situated at 5794 Park Haven Avenue, and at the Recreation Building situated at 7500 Mackle Road in the city of Côte Saint-Luc will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling the draft bylaw at the same time. So this is also one that is a legal matter. This is with regard to the ACC in terms of the roof and building envelope. One of the things we noticed over the last few years is that there were some issues of water infiltration. And again, something that should not happen for a building that is not that old. We have hired a consultant who's looking into it and are working again through our legal department to go after the builder. But in the meantime, the work needs to be done because we need to maintain the integrity of our building and make sure that we prevent any long-term damage. So this is one of the projects that will be done in 2023. I'll move on to item 10. Hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2609 to be entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $186,000 for the purchase of vehicles and equipment will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. So this is, furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling the draft bylaw 2609. So this is for the purchase of 2 public security vehicles. So this has been a discussion that's been talked about quite a bit, at least internally. For the moment, there'll be hybrid vehicles for public security. We have been looking for an electric vehicle alternative for public security, but there is not one yet available on the market. I hate to say it. So for this batch of public security vehicles, it will be a hybrid similar to the Ford hybrid police versions that we've been using. I will say, though, it's using about half the fuel of the regular vehicles, which is good. But I hope that this batch of utility vehicles or SUVs will be the last ones that are hybrid, and the next one in about 2 years from now, hopefully will be fully electric. But of course, we need to wait for the market to make sure that there are electric vehicles that are compatible with our uses and to make sure those are available. I'll move on to item 11. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2610 to be entitled bylaw authorizing a loan of $445,000 for the purchase of heavy vehicles and heavy vehicle equipment will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling the draft bylaw 2610 as well. So this is for the purchase of a 10-wheel dumper or 10-wheel dump truck. This is replacing one from 2006. So you can imagine it's a vehicle that's 16, approaching 17 years old. And also for a salt spreading tractor, replacing a vehicle from 2009. So another one that's about 13, 14 years old. And both those vehicles have seen a long life and are in need of replacement. And one of the things I can say is we've been able to do over the last few years is replenish the fleet. When I started, I would say we had one of the oldest fleets. For those who may recall, we had a lot of these older vehicles that were still painted turquoise. So we had snow blowers from the 1960s. Now, of course, they're all from the 2000s and even, in the last few years. So it's good to have a fleet that is up to date. And of course, in the long run, it means less maintenance costs for those vehicles as well. I'll move on to item 12. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2611 to be entitled bylaw for the renovations to be completed at Singer and Park Chalet situated at 5564 Robinson in the city of Côte Saint-Luc, and the application of the sum of $123,900 to be taken from available balances of various bylaws in view of financing and expense of $123,900 will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling of the draft bylaw as well. So this is for work and renovations at the Singer and Park Chalet. I'm happy to report that this is a more reasonable cost. I should mention that originally, when we looked at this chalet, there was the sum required seemed to be much higher, but I appreciate the work of our engineering and public works department that reviewed it and realized that it can be done at a smaller fee in terms of fixes or repairs to the building envelope. And again, the work for this should be done in 2023. And I'll just mention as well that the money for this project is coming from old bylaws. So there were previous bylaws where we borrowed a little bit too much money. And so we were able to gather all those sums and put them together. And I think it's from about, actually 2, 4, 6, from about 10 previous bylaws, and able to put those funds together to equal the amount needed for this project. And with that, that's the end of the notices of motion.
Thank you. So we have another item on the agenda, item number 13, which is maintaining the status of an organization required under the Charter of the French language. It's dealing with our bilingual status. We received a letter from the OQLF asking us, that if we want to maintain our bilingual status. And that's in Bill 96. I believe 47 municipalities have received this letter. And we are taking action tonight, which is required under Bill 96, passing the resolution required under that law in order to express our desire to maintain our bilingual status. Now, the city of Côte Saint-Luc has a history of being a bilingual city. And under Bill 96, you're able to operate and provide services both in English and French if you have bilingual status. There are still certain restrictions that apply to bilingual cities, such as contracts have to still be written, now drafted in French. Those are you're allowed to give a translation in English, but only the French document is the legal one for all understanding. There's also the ability for the OQLF to come in and search and seize documents and determine whether we're following the law without notice based on an anonymous tip. There's also the possibility of grants being taken away from a city such as ours if it's determined that we're not following the law. So there's many issues in the law, but one of them is dealing with the maintaining your bilingual status, which gives us a much larger ability to provide services in English and French. Et c'est vraiment important. Dans la vie au Québec, c'est vraiment important. Et on est chanceuse de vivre dans une ville où on peut donner des services en français et en anglais. Parce qu'on vit dans l'Amérique du Nord, on vit dans un monde global maintenant, où tous les Québécois veulent avoir la chance d'accélérer, d'avoir la chance de choisir leur emploi et de travailler dans leur domaine avec une habilité de parler avec tout le monde. So, for example, I have a nephew who wants to be a doctor in Quebec. He got into a school in Ireland. Fortunately, he understands enough English. He was an Anglophone, but he understands English enough to be able to go to Ireland and become a doctor and then come back to Quebec and provide the service that we need a lot of doctors in Quebec. So bilingualism is a wonderful thing. It's something we want to support. We want to encourage all Quebecers to take advantage of this opportunity to excel in their lives. And being bilingual gives us more chances, whether you're anglophone or francophone, it gives you more chances to excel in life. Et c'est très important à Côte Saint-Luc de le faire. Et on a Cette statut, depuis toujours, et on veut la voir, ça va être un statut qu'on va continuer de donner les services en français et anglais à tous les résidents à Côte Saint-Luc. Et maintenant, je vais donner la parole à le conseiller Erdely, qui a travaillé très fort sur ce dossier avec moi et avec Andrea Sharon. Andrea Sharon, who's one of the lawyers in our city, and we're working very hard on this file to ensure that we continue to be able to provide that service. And he will present the resolution, and then it will be seconded, and other members of council can speak to it. And I encourage them to do so. So, Councillor Erdely, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just maybe if I may say a few quick words beforehand.
Go ahead.
I'll just add that, to follow up on the mayor's comments, it's not just, for example, that if a city is not following the clause in the charter of the French language in Bill 96, that the government can withhold all their funding. It's that the minister responsible for the French language can unilaterally do it. Now, it's one thing if there was, if we had to go to court, if there was a trial and so on, that would be one thing, although even then we would disagree. But the fact that the minister can unilaterally decide to cut all the funding for the city of Côte Saint-Luc, and that includes funding from the gas tax, part of which is from the federal government. So they would unilaterally cut all funding to Côte Saint-Luc, both monies coming from the provincial and the federal government. It's not acceptable. The fact that they can come in without a warrant and search and seize computers and phones and so on from our staff. The fact that if we want to have a contract with an employee who is English speaking, we cannot. We have to do a contract in French in spite of the employee, in spite of a company wanting that. The fact that it'll cost the city, of course, money and time, and it makes no sense in terms of our residents. So, ça me semble un peu bizarre, certains règlements dans la loi 96, et notre but, c'est que ce soit, qu'on peut mettre, que ça soit plus juste pour les résidents de Côte Saint-Luc. We want to make sure that it's something that makes sense, that in the best interest of the city of Côte Saint-Luc, and we'll continue to fight certain aspects of this law. Maybe I'll read it. Je vais lire en français et en anglais. I'll read it in both. Considérant l'avis donné le 12 décembre 2022 par l'Office québécois de la langue française à l'effet de la ville que la ville ne remplirait plus la condition exigée par l'article 29,1 de la Charte de la langue française, c'est-à-dire que plus de la moitié des résidents et résidents de son territoire sont de langue maternelle anglaise, considérant que selon les données démolinguistiques recueillies lors du recensement 2021 de Statistique Canada, 46% des résidentes et résidents de la municipalité ont déclaré avoir l'anglais comme langue maternelle. Considérant que, suivant l'article 29,2 de la Charte, la reconnaissance obtenue par la municipalité lui sera retirée, le seul effet de la loi à l'échéance d'un délai de 120 jours à compter de la réception de l'avis transmis par l'Office. Considérant que cette reconnaissance est toutefois maintenue si la municipalité adopte avant cette échéance une résolution à cet effet, à cette fin et en avise l'Office sans délai, considérant qu'il est dans l'intérêt de la ville de conserver son statut d'organisme reconnu, il est proposé et résolu que le conseil municipal confirme son intention de maintenir le statut de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc à titre d'organisme reconnu par la Charte de la langue française, qu'une copie certifiée conforme de la présente résolution soit transmise à l'Office québécois de la langue française sans délai. I'll read it now in English. Whereas the notice given December 12, 2022 by the Office québécois de la langue française to the effect that the city would no longer satisfy the condition required by Section 29.1 of the Charter of the French language, i.e. that more than half of the residents of its territory have English as their mother tongue, whereas according to the demolinguistic data collected in 2021 Statistics Canada Census, 46% of the residents of the municipality declared English as their mother tongue, whereas pursuant to Section 29.2 of the Charter, the recognition obtained by the municipality will be withdrawn by the sole operation of law on expiry of a period of 120 days from the receipt of the notice sent by the Office, whereas such recognition is, however, maintained if the municipality adopts a resolution to that effect before this deadline and notifies the office without delay. Whereas it is in the best interest of the city to maintain its status as a recognized body, be it resolved that the council hereby confirms its intention to maintain the city of Côte Saint-Luc status as a body recognized by the Charter of the French language, and that a certified copy of the present resolution shall be transmitted without delay to the Office québécois de la langue française. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any further discussion? I just want to add just a couple of things on top of that. This tonight we're dealing with the issue of maintaining our bilingual status. We've spoken about a lot of the other concerns in the law in Bill 96 that affect bilingual cities, and for that we have been in contact with the other 89 or other 88 bilingual cities to consider a legal contestation. But tonight we're talking about bilingual status and having punitive laws against don't work, and there's a misunderstanding between protecting French and protecting one's culture. The language is not at risk, and punitive laws will not help protect a language. As an immigration attorney that practiced immigration law for 25 years, I can say it is very clear that, you know, the people that come, when you say mother tongue, you're not getting a real reflection of who lives in Côte Saint-Luc. In Côte Saint-Luc, we have people who live here from all over the world, and their mother tongue, for a large percentage, is English. And their mother tongue is also from so many other places, but they also know English. And fortunately or unfortunately, it's a reality. As an immigration attorney, I know whether you're the Philippines or most countries around the world, you're taught English as a second language. So when you come here, even though it's not your mother tongue, you know it. So people in Côte Saint-Luc may have a different mother tongue, but they live in English because that's what the language that they know as their second language. And as well, of course, we have a large percentage with English as their mother tongue. So if you add that all up, the percentage is extremely high, and it's a minority of the population that has a mother tongue of French. But that being said, we want everybody to have that ability to be bilingual, and we don't want to confuse protecting culture with protecting language. If you live in a world with the internet, if you live in a world where you want to be able to excel, you're going to hear English. You're going to be hearing it, whether you're Francophone or Anglophone, you're going to hear English. You want to understand it. You want to understand TikTok. You want to understand all the different things that are happening in the world. You just want to. We can't stop this. So these laws are not going to change the situation in Quebec. They're just punitive, and all they're doing is they're scaring Anglophones who are afraid and feel uncomfortable, and many are considering leaving. There will be no protection of the language. It's not the way to go. So we're going to maintain our bilingual status, and we'll try to keep on sending that message that it's a good thing. C'est une bonne chose d'avoir la capacité de parler en anglais. C'est pas quelque chose de mauvais. C'est une très bonne chose de protéger la culture française et d'avoir la capacité de parler français. Certainement, c'est important au Québec, et je pense que tout le travail qu'on a fait depuis 40 ans, certainement, a fait quelque chose de bien au Québec, parce que si on va dans la rue, on voit que presque tout le monde peut parler en français. Et ça, c'est le résultat qu'on veut, que tout le monde, si on va aller à un magasin ou un docteur ou quelque part, on peut communiquer en français dans une province francophone. That's the goal. Make sure that everyone can communicate in French, not worry about what they're speaking in their house. So anybody else want to speak? We'll pass it on. Councillor Burku.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Cette résolution m'a fait beaucoup réfléchir, car nous sommes une ville bilingue et on doit en être très fiers. La ville de Côte Saint-Luc n'est pas contre la primauté du français. Nous sommes une ville bilingue et je pense que toutes les communautés et tous les groupes ethniques comprennent à quel point Il est important d'avoir plus d'options pour créer des opportunités pour nous-mêmes et pour nos enfants. Regardez comment nos organisations, nos groupes, nos écoles, notre ville ont évolué. Côte Saint-Luc est la meilleure ville pour promouvoir ce statut. Et même si nous appuyons la primauté du français, il faut le faire dans le respect de la communauté anglophone. D'ailleurs, dans le préambule de la Charte de la langue française, il est inscrit ainsi: l'Assemblée nationale entend poursuivre cet objectif, la promotion du français, dans un esprit de justice et d'ouverture dans le respect des institutions de la communauté québécoise d'expression anglaise et celui des minorités ethniques dont elle reconnaît l'apport précieux au développement du Québec. Alors, si cette notion, si ce principe qui est inscrit dans la Charte de la langue française doit être respecté, j'encourage toutes les villes du Québec qui ont le statut, selon l'article 29.1 de la Charte, un statut spécial qui leur donne le droit de donner les services dans les deux langues, de communiquer avec leurs résidents dans les deux langues, de rédiger des contrats, de tenir des séances du conseil dans les deux langues, vraiment de servir leur communauté. Et le fait que nous, on est la première ville, encore une fois, la première ville, mais pas la dernière, à adopter cette résolution, on espère que toutes les villes du Québec vont faire la même chose. Alors, moi, je veux simplement appuyer cette résolution très fortement. Et bien que nous comprenons que le français doit être protégé et on doit en faire la promotion, nous devons également permettre l'utilisation de l'anglais. C'est notre présent et il doit être notre avenir. Travaillons avec la communauté francophone pour faire de Côte Saint-Luc un véritable exemple de ce que le bilinguisme peut signifier au Québec. Si c'est notre objectif, la campagne résonnera à travers le Québec. Cette preuve de leadership, c'est un défi. Parce que moi, je vais juste donner un exemple de ma propre expérience de vie. Bientôt 72 ans. J'ai pratiqué le droit en français au Québec pendant plus de 40 ans. J'étais le leader de la majorité de l'agglomération de Montréal pendant 2 ans et demi en français, principalement en français. Et tout ça, c'est dû au fait que mes parents, qui sont des immigrants, qui sont venus au Québec, qui voulaient que j'apprenne le français, m'ont envoyé à une école française privée à l'élémentaire parce que je n'avais pas le droit, en tant que personne de confession juive, d'aller à l'école publique française. Donc, j'étais obligée d'aller à l'école privée française, et ce que j'ai fait, Collège Marie de France. Et suite à ça, bien sûr, j'ai vraiment profité de cet apprentissage, de cette éducation que j'ai donnée d'ailleurs à mes enfants et à mes petits-enfants. Mais ça ne veut pas dire que je ne veux pas communiquer en anglais avec mes résidents, que je ne veux pas communiquer en anglais avec mes collègues du conseil ou que je veux être brimée dans mes droits de communiquer si je veux le faire en anglais. On est une ville bilingue et c'est ce que j'ai vécu toute ma vie et j'en suis fière et les résidents de Côte Saint-Luc doivent aussi en être très, très fiers. Et donc, j'appuie cette résolution et je pense que toutes les villes qui ont le statut doivent faire la même chose et on va faire campagne pour que toutes les villes qui ont le statut de ville bilingue adoptent des résolutions qui vont dans le même sens. Merci.
Merci, le conseiller Burkhill. Councillor Cohen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's interesting that we're passing this resolution the same week or the last 2 weeks where all the controversy has surrounded the certificate of eligibility for CEGEPs, and I've been at the center of that with the English Montreal School Board. And what I've seen is members of our own community and members of the larger Francophone community very upset. They seem to be asleep at the wheel when the CAQ passed a lot of Bill 96, either that or unaware. I don't think a lot of people, I don't think the Liberal Party and their former leader had any clue what a wonderful opportunity they had during the last election campaign, not to make friends with the English community, but with the Francophone voters. Because what we're hearing now with, through the school board and through many people is, why am I not allowed a choice as an adult to choose to go to English CEGEP? I was forced to go to French public or private school, and maybe we can use that to our advantage when we have the next census, because people are filling out what language they speak at home. But I know many people from, for instance, Sephardic Jewish families who speak English at home and French at home. And there's so many people who have, like you said in your comments, a different language at home from another country, but they speak English at home. And I think we need to use all this to our advantage, because the fact remains is that I think even members of the Francophone community are starting to get upset about Bill 96. It is not the wonderful thing that the CAQ thinks it is in every shape and fashion. And we'll have to watch this, but I'm glad at least tonight we're able to adopt this resolution and maintain our bilingual status. And at least I thank the government for that.
Okay. Okay. Le conseiller Ben-Ezri. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. J'aimerais juste réitérer un peu ce qui a été dit et puis juste mentionner que j'appuie cette résolution, que c'est important que notre ville soit une ville bilingue, comme l'a montré un peu nos statistiques, où on a plus de résidents qui parlent, qui parlent l'anglais. Ça ne veut pas dire que, comme on l'a mentionné, que le français est pas une langue qu'on revoit un petit peu dans notre ville. C'est important. Moi-même, je viens aussi. Ma première langue, c'est le français, et c'est pas pour et je travaille en anglais tous les jours, et c'est important qu'on puisse vraiment communiquer et être bilingue, de pouvoir communiquer en deux langues et de pouvoir transmettre ça. Toutes ces valeurs à nos enfants, et c'est important. Moi aussi, dans mon cas, on a toujours parlé français à la maison, mais ça ne nous a pas empêché d'éduquer nos enfants aussi en anglais, parce que pour pouvoir se défendre à l'extérieur au niveau de leurs études, au niveau de pouvoir exceller dans le marché du travail, c'est important qu'on puisse avoir aussi l'anglais, et de pouvoir aussi communiquer en français, de garder aussi le français, qui est important. On reconnaît que Montréal est à mes yeux, à moi, que c'est une ville bilingue, et qu'on puisse continuer à le faire, et que Côte Saint-Luc, et qu'on puisse garder notre ville bilingue, de nature bilingue. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle c'est important qu'on puisse continuer, et puis la raison pour laquelle j'appuie cette résolution. Merci.
Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres? Anybody else? So we're good? Good. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, I'll vote for that one too. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so now we go to 14. Councilor Burku, hiring of Pascal Tongi.
I don't, OK. Parce que mon index, OK, d'accord. D'accord. Il est résolu que le conseil municipal ratifie l'embauche de... OK, sorry. My mic. Il est résolu que le conseil municipal de Côte Saint-Luc ratifie l'embauche de Pascal Tanguay comme directrice, Pascalie Tanguay, comme directrice des services juridiques et greffière à compter du 23 janvier 2023. Qu'un certificat du trésorier sera délivré au cours de l'exercice 2023 par le trésorier de la ville attestant de la disponibilité des fonds pour couvrir les dépenses décrites ci-dessus.
Ok, merci. Proposé par le conseiller Burkou, appuyé par le conseiller Finisri. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions?
Okay, so this is a new hire for the position of Director of Legal Services and City Clerk, which became vacant couple of, well, at least almost a year ago at this point. And we're very happy now that we're going to have someone to take over this position. It's a very important position in the city. So thank you very much for.
Thank you, Maitre Schechter, for all of your great work during
Yeah.
this difficult time until we found Pascali, and we're looking forward to working with Maitre Tanguay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously, and now motion for adjournment. Councillor Schuster, seconded by Councillor Cohen. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.